Um, Good evening, everyone, and welcome to FCCJ, the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan. My name is Ilgin Yorulmaz. I'm a freelance journalist and also serve as the second vice president of FCCJ. I am also a co-chair of its diversity committee. This event is being live streamed, and so we have a hybrid event. So please, if you are in the audience, turn off your mobile phones or set them to flight mode. We would like to start by basically introducing what this event is about, and also we'll hear from our president. The International Women in Photo Association, IWPA, is a French non-profit group that aims to give more visibility to women visual storytellers of all origins and nationalities, while sharing with global audiences diverse stories about the realities of men and women of our planet. Its showcase event is the IWPA Award, a photography competition that is followed by exhibitions of the winning entries in major cities across the world. The open call for submissions this year was held from May 1st to June 30th, and it garnered an impressive 1,900 photographic projects from a record-breaking 106 countries. That's unbelievable. Selected by an international jury of esteemed personalities, full series of the best female talents, as well as their statements, interviews, and a virtual tour can be seen online at iwpa.fr. FCCJ is one of the host venues to exhibit these distinguished artists' work between November 4th and December 2nd. So please come and visit the club during those times and see this amazing body of work in our corridors displayed right now. Now I'd like to invite the FCCJ president, Dave McCombs. Dave, can you hear us? Are you there? Dave, can you hear me?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes,
okay.
I can definitely
hear
you.
You're muted. Okay. Yes, please. We invite you to say a couple of opening remarks, please.
Okay. So first of all, I just want to thank you for inviting me to do this again, and thanks for that introduction. I really appreciate everything that the IWPA is doing, and I just wanted to talk a bit about that mission and how important it is for the world of journalism. I think that anyone who spends some time at the club will notice that when guests to the club walk down the entrance hallway and see the exhibition, you can always see in their eyes the way that they light up. And you can see that people understand that they're in the presence of real news. They can see on the walls that what they're seeing is, seeing is believing. They're seeing real news as it's presented in the photographs on the wall. So I think that in that sense, the exhibition speaks for itself, as does photography in general. I'm not necessarily one to put great stock in the idea of representation. If I really believe that, I wouldn't be speaking to you as a man to a women's group. But I do believe in the absolute essential role that authenticity plays. And when I looked at the photos, these award-winning photos that you all have created, the authenticity is what really jumped out at me. And that's exactly why I think what you're doing with this group and these awards is so important. We're living in an age where we basically have a war over what reality is. You have AI generating fake news, fake images, and all of this. So authenticity has become so much more important. And I think that's where an organization like IWPA and a competition like this are so important, because they draw attention to the creators. A lot of times writers and certainly reporters to some extent, editors also, they get bylines. They get exposure. Announcers on TV, they get exposure, but photographers often do not get the exposure they deserve, and that's becoming more and more important as this question of authenticity really comes to bear in the world that we live in now. So much where so many issues and so many news stories come down to this question of real authenticity. You know, when I see photography work by a woman who was about women who are jailed for life, and you know, this is photography that's done by a woman who is a former public defender. You know, I can see very clearly the authenticity is clear there, and it's not just the authenticity is evident from the photography itself. It's also that when you know who the photographer is and what their story is, the authenticity is even that much clearer. So I really support this work, and I think it fits so well with what the mission of our club is. So again, I thank you for giving us a chance to present this work. And I also applaud you and give you congratulations for these awards. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave. Now I'd like to move to the panelists. Again, this is in no particular order, but we have organized this panel discussion to mark this exhibition launch. And a couple of, I think we have 6 out of 8 finalists or laureates with us tonight to talk about their work, which, as Dave was mentioning, is a true testament to the power of visual storytelling and its capacity to promote positive change in our society, and not just in the countries they come from or in the countries that they work at. I'm going to start with Louise Amelie, who is a finalist in the professional category. Louise has won this, was a finalist in the professional category with the series Missing Member. If we can maybe show a couple of images from the series while I speak. The series Missing Member by Louise explores the complex concept of migration through the individual stories of Bishkek's residents, reflecting the indomitable spirit of Kyrgyzstan's young population amid post-Soviet challenges. Louise Amelie is a Berlin-based photographer from Germany and director renowned for her captivating documentary and street photography. A recipient of several awards, she also founded Bishkek Art Weeks and is chairwoman of Art City, an international art and culture association. Louise, if you can hear us, I just want to kick off by perhaps asking you about your work. Your work, past and this one, has mostly featured those living on the outskirts of the society. We can see isolation and diversity, for example, with your previous work, Off Worlds and Soul Harlem series in America. How and why did you get interested in Kyrgyzstan? Can you tell us a bit? Louise, are you hearing us?
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so as you said, I've born and raised in Berlin, and for me, Berlin is a city of diversity. I grew up with people of the most different backgrounds, and I just experienced a rising right wing in Germany in the recent years. And I watched that with big concern, and I always wanted to work on the topic of migration. So I met with a good friend and colleague of mine, Dasha Nesterova. She's a social worker in Berlin with a focus of migration and asylum. And she used to work in Kyrgyzstan and lived there for a while. So we both decided, because this topic was very important to us, to make a research trip in Kyrgyzstan and working on that topic. For me, Kyrgyzstan has like a symbolic point of migration, because every third country in Kyrgyzstan has to leave to support their families, and that means that every family has at least one family member, mostly even more than one family, who is in a different country, and that leaves a big gap in society, which these families and relatives have to deal with. So of course, migration has very similar ways and aspects everywhere in the world. But for me, it was like very, very present in Kyrgyzstan, and I was interested in the way how the people who are like left behind really dealing with that. And I hope that by showing this perspective, I can also raise empathy in my home country about the ones who have to leave their family members, their relatives. Like nobody leaves their home country without a good reason. And that's why I decided to focus on Kyrgyzstan. And for me, it was the first time that I was in Central Asia. And I was very, very surprised to meet very creative and active young population. I met a lot of artists who were dealing in a very creatively way and creating new perspectives from themselves, which were actually quite close to the art scene in Berlin. And that was very nice to see for me. So I also wanted to connect these two cities, the capital of Kyrgyzstan, Bishkek, and the capital of Germany. And now, 4 years later, there's a big connection. And we together with Kyrgyz creatives and German creatives, and also from Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, we together founded this association Art City, because we want to continue working together and talking through art and through photography, through storytelling about social issues which are important for all of us.
So we saw some children in some of those photos. Can you tell us who are they and how did you meet them? How do you meet your subjects? And also, maybe if I may ask, which one is difficult to take photos of humans or situations for you?
So the way I approach my protagonist is very different. Sometimes I have appointments. As I said before, we me and my colleague Dasha Nesterova, we really wanted to work also on that topic from a scientific point of view. So we did some appointments before, but also I really like to work freely. So I'm always walking the streets with an open eye and be ready to talk with people, to get in contact with. One image, for example, they're like, you can see two young boys. This image was shot in an orphanage in Karakol. It's like on the border to China and Kazakhstan. And
this one, right? You're talking about. Go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah. And this was part of an interview we held with the leader of that orphanage, and she told us how a lot of young children in Kyrgyzstan growing up without their parents, because they are abroad to support their family financially. So this image, for example, is like part of an interview we had, and we spent the whole day in that place and talked to the people. And next year I'm planning to go back to that place, because I also collected some fundings in Germany, and I we want to continue supporting the people we worked with and we interviewed with. But there's also images, for example, of the young girl you can see in the store, and that was shot very spontaneous. I was just having lunch, and we're talking with the owner of that store, who was taking care of her own 3 children. Her husband was abroad, and also of the children of her sister, who was working actually in Germany. And this is like a little family-owned store who sold typical Kyrgyz soup called ashlamfu.
Can I ask, Louise, is it which photo is that?
Yes, this one.
This one, right? Okay. What does it say? Sorry, at the top, I can't read.
This is not the advertisement for the store.
Okay.
So this is nothing important for the image itself.
Yes.
It's just like it was a very, very simple place. But for me, the conversation were the most important, because I always met people who were taking care of kids from their relatives, or were missing loved ones who were not in the country. And this was the main aspect I always encountered when I talked to people. And
let's take another photo, if you can also walk us through. Maybe another photo.
Yeah, with pleasure. So this one was shot in the close to the area to Osh. So it's close to the border of Uzbekistan. It's one of the most poorest area in Kyrgyzstan, because the vegetation there is more dry. And these are 2 young women working in a gas station. And what I also experienced is that the young female population is a very powerful and strong population. So they deal with their lives in a very bold way. They taking care of their families. There are a lot of women also who leave the country to support their families, and their husbands stay in Kyrgyzstan. And migration also, it's not only there are not only negative points. So for a lot of women, for example, migration is also an opportunity to free themselves from old family structures. So the series is actually dealing with a lot of different aspects about migration, and this includes also the positive aspects of it.
And I believe there's one more, a young girl in an Islamic scarf. Yes, can you tell us the story behind this one? Very, very,
Yeah, so that's actually, there's not so much to say about it. It's like this. It was a very short encounter I had in a little village in the north of the country. So what I was fascinated too is then in Berlin and Germany, there's a freedom of religion in Kyrgyzstan. So you encounter a lot of different people and different religious people were always interested in my religion and my beliefs, and it was you could openly discuss about it and have like interesting talks. And she was just sitting just right next to a wall, and I passed by her, and she was the older siblings of 2 more, so she took care of her younger siblings when I encountered her. And there's actually another picture of the 3 of them together, but for me this image was just looking like a sculpture. Like, for me it's just a very beautiful picture of her.
Yeah, it's
her
like
name is Bennett, which means a pearl in Kyrgyz.
Ah, very nice. I was going to say, reminding me of the girl in pearl earring, just for some reason, the same very naive look on her face. Just final question. I mean, was it difficult for you to be in Central Asia as a woman, as a Westerner, I don't want to categorize you. You're a photographer, end of story, but difficult to approach, and in some maybe cases.
So I'm not gonna lie, it was my first time in Central Asia, and I went there with a lot of prejudices, also because of Western media. I perceive, like, when it comes to these Stan countries, and it was no problem at all for traveling. I was traveling alone with another female colleague of mine, and we were like hitchhiking. We didn't have our own car. We had nobody like planning for us the trip, and people were very respectfully with me. And there's I didn't came in a situation where I feel uncomfortable. So this was also something I mean, we are in a constant way of learning, and I always try to tell people also to not be afraid also to tell when we have prejudices, which all of us has, but it's good to talk about it and to get rid of them, to find similarities, to find differences. This is how the world is. And yeah, I was very, very surprised. But in general, so as a photojournalist, and the way I get in contact with people, doesn't matter if I take pictures of them or not, is to be very sensitive, to listen. And for me, photography is about the moments you don't take pictures. For me, photography is a very there's a lot to do with psychology. Every situation is differently, and for me it's no different if I take a portrait on a situation. I always have to deal with different kind of personalities, with my surrounding, and I have to be open and sensitive to that. And if I am, I don't encounter, I will not get in bad situations, because if I take care of it, I feel if people are free to take pictures or not, or I react very differently then also. So it's not one way I go, it's like always different.
Okay. Thank you, Louise Amelie. Thank you very much for taking us through the photos as well. Now I want to move on to, thank you, Sara Bennett. Can you hear us, Sara?
I can. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes, we can hear you. Sara is the laureate in the emerging category. Her series is called Looking Inside: Portraits of Women Serving Life Sentences. In Looking Inside: Portraits of Women Serving Life Sentences, artist Sara Bennett compassionately portrays women serving life sentences for homicide in New York prisons. Her goal is to showcase their multifaceted identities, demonstrating that they are more than their convictions, and capturing their resilience, introspection, and dignity. After 18 years as a public defender, Sara Bennett turned her attention to photographing women with life sentences both inside and outside prison when they're released. Recipient of several accolades since 2018, her work has been widely exhibited and can be found in public and private collections. So congratulations on your win, Sara. I believe you are in a unique position as a photographer. We have to ask you, tell us a little bit about your life as a former prosecutor and now a photographer while we look at your photos. Thank you.
Okay. Well, actually, I was a public defender, not a prosecutor, meaning that I defended people who had been convicted of mostly serious crimes. I actually came to photography because I had left the practice of law around 2004, and around 2009, I picked up a pro bono case of a woman who was serving 75 years to life in prison. And what that means is you serve your 75 years before you're eligible for parole. So that's a life sentence, you know? And she'd been in prison about 28 years at that point. And some of the formerly incarcerated women I knew, I always got pretty involved with my clients, probably more so than a lot of attorneys do. And I actually had a pretty strong practice of representing women who had killed their abusers. But just so you know, the women in all my series didn't necessarily kill their abusers. They were involved in all different kinds of homicides. But anyway, some people came to me and asked me if I would try to get her what's called clemency from the New York State governor, which means it's like an extraordinary remedy that's almost never, ever, ever given. So it's not even something that most people know about. And so I eventually said, yes, I would take that case on. And I was trying to figure out how to humanize her because she had done a lot for the other women in prison. Like she was considered an elder. She was in her mid-60s, I think, when I first took on her case. And a lot of people just had a lot of big fondness for her. And so I wasn't a photographer. And my husband's a photographer, and I just borrowed his camera, and I got a bunch of formerly incarcerated women to come to my house, and I took their portraits. And I took 15 portraits, and I asked them, my client's name was Judy. I asked them what Judy meant to them. And I put together a little booklet, basically. It was 15 portraits, 15 statements. And I sent it to everybody I could think of, like New York State legislators and the governor and the governor's council. And at that time, it was 2012, there was a newly created commission on reentry. And I sent it to the 50 members, and I heard back from, I think, 11. And I didn't expect to hear from anybody. And people were like, this is interesting. And then I showed it to my friends, and they were like, oh, what's she in prison for? She looks so normal, or so like she looks like her grandmother, or oh, she has kids. So people were really curious, not so much about my client, Judy, but about the other women I had photographed. And so it's taken me on this 10-year-long path of photographing women, all of whom have life sentences, which was a very conscious decision on my part because in the United States at that time, people were just beginning to start to think about incarceration, and they were talking about letting go what's called the low-level drug offenders. So the people who had been incarcerated for low-level drug crimes, but nobody cared about women at all. Like they're not even part of the conversation. And nobody was talking about people with life sentences. So that's how I got started. It took me about, I think 6 or 7 years until I was able to get into prison, or to feel like I had enough credibility to even ask to go inside prison. And it was a lot of, negotiation and stuff to get the kind of photos and the access that I did.
Okay. Now, I don't know if the audience can actually read the comments written by the I did read all of them, actually. And I urge everyone to go and look at them. All the comments were very powerful, but perhaps if I may choose one, there was the photograph of Patrice. She's 36. She's sentenced to 25 years to life, incarcerated at the age of 16, just 16 in 1998. She's written, just because we ask for a second chance at life doesn't mean we have forgotten what we have done. It means we were once part of the problem, and to heal those we have hurt, we must be part of the solution, part of the conversation. Now, the reason I found this very powerful is, and I want to ask you about your view, really are these long incarceration and excessive prison time always the answer?
Well, I love, first of all, that you chose this one to ask about, because this is the day when I came home with this photo that I finally felt like I was a photographer. Before that, it just felt like I was being lucky or something like that. And then this day I was like, okay, I guess I know what I'm doing. So it took me a long time to feel even like a photographer. This is the whole purpose of this series, was to get people to have an understanding of people like Patrice and the other women. And that's why I incorporate their handwriting, so you know their thoughts. And when you know their thoughts, you start to realize like we people get convicted, and then we throw them away and lock away the key. We lock them away, and people never think about them again, and they forget that like people are so much more than whatever it was that took them to prison, and that they're, you know, I don't know, they're like some of the most deep thinkers I've ever met, and they're very resilient, and they really grapple with what it is that has taken them to prison. And we don't see that. And if we do see that, then we'll be like, why are we incarcerating people like this? Like, it doesn't make any sense. They have so much to offer society, and we don't know that. And that's why I'm really happy to hear that you've read everything, because I want there to be that interaction and that conversation. That's why it's handwritten, not typed, so that, you know, there is that conversation between the person I photographed and the person who's viewing the photograph. So no, it's not the answer. That's the whole purpose. The whole reason I do this work is for people to think about incarceration and how we can change what we do. And the United States is really one of the worst countries in the world. And the amount of time that people are serving is just an insane amount. Like my client, who I talked about in the beginning, had 75 years to life. And after 10 years, I actually did win clemency for her, and she did come home. But she had served 37 years in prison. Patrice was sentenced at the age of 16 to 25 years to life. She actually got out of prison because the law changed. And so when I met her, she thought of herself as somebody who had killed, you know, she had killed a man when she was 16, he was 72. And she killed him. And when I met her, I was like, what is that about? Well, he had actually groomed her. And then he groomed her, and then he, you know, sexually, you know, I mean, basically, I can't even think of the word for her. She was a trafficking victim is what she was, a sex trafficking victim. But when I met her, she didn't think of herself like that. And that's, I think if she wrote her statement today, I think she would say something completely different. But I think after she met me, and then the law was changing at the same time, she started to have a deeper understanding that she was actually a victim. She should never have been incarcerated in the first place. So, okay. Yeah.
Let's take one other photo, maybe take a look at one other photo because they're really powerful. I just want to show maybe one more, just choosing at random. How about, can you explain? Is that?
Oh, that's Patrice. That's the one we were just talking about. Patrice.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I hope you choose Jennifer. She's a young woman, because I just heard from her yesterday. When I always write to the women and tell them where the work is, and she almost never responds to me. She's one of the few people who doesn't. And she told me that knowing that the work is now on the wall in Tokyo, she said it makes her feel. She wrote me and said it makes me feel like I still exist. We're
gonna find that photo. That's Jennifer.
That's the one. That's the one. And she was like, she was 17 when she went to prison, and she feels completely lost and locked away, and like nobody cares. And so knowing that her photo is out in the world says she still feels like she exists. And that's also part of the work. The reason I do this work, I want women to have some hope, and to know that people do care about them, and that people will think about these issues and will fight for them. And I guess I just want to close by saying that one of the really great things about this work is that 13 out of the 20 women I photographed have all been released from prison. And I do think that a lot of it is the attention that you know, it's just like the attention on them specifically meant that I was then able to find people to represent them, lawyers for them, help their lawyers, etc. And so, you know, somebody like her, I'm still hopeful that she also will one day get free.
Thank you so much. Now I'm moving to...
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Natalia Garbu.
Yes, hello.
Thank you. She is a finalist in the emerging category from Moldova. Natalia, can you hear us?
Yes, hello.
Thank you. Hello. Yes. So, as part of her long-term project to establish a national visual identity for Moldova, Natalia presents Moldova Lookbook. Her series offers a vivid exploration of Moldova's colorful landscapes and contrasts, capturing the essence of a country still shaping its identity and place in the world. Natalia initially pursued economics due to the challenging circumstances of the 1990s in Moldova. However, she eventually followed her passion for photography to explore themes relating to gender equality and the cultural identity of her country. Natalia, I know that Moldova is nestled between, I think, Ukraine and Romania. I just want to ask you, in very simple terms, maybe, this term Moldovanism, Moldovan identity and culture, what can you say to us, or how would you describe us Moldovan identity?
It's quite a new term, Moldovan identity, because it's a very complicated issue we have on identity. So I think I should start with the fact that if you ask me 10 years ago, who am I, where I come from, I would say, I don't know, because first of all, I was born in a country that doesn't exist anymore. It's the Soviet Union. And then started to study in a country, quite young country, which is Republic of Moldova. That's its life is the Republic exists for 30 years. But so Moldovanism, due to its history, is a quite young term, because Moldova historically has been ruled and conquered by different states from Russian Empire, then allied to Romania, and then again it was conquered by Soviet Union, and then here we are independent, free, and alone. So Moldovanism is a term of 30 years, and that also gave a lot of speculation in politics, of course, because the country is divided in very eastern political vision or western. It's the history is so huge, and like a very huge generational trauma that I don't think I can manage to put all in words now.
And you sound like you're an embodiment of that identity and culture, so young yet so old as well. I believe I don't know if they're in your photo series, but there are minorities. Is that right?
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
So,
can you tell us a little bit about them? What are they facing in this Moldovanism identity?
Yeah, a kind of hard question to answer, but what I would say is that the main challenge for minorities comes from people who want to promote a monoethnic vision of Moldovan identity. I think it's a common problem in the whole world, right? So Moldova by itself, due to its history, is a multi-ethnic place. And I think we as a nation, can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Moldovan as a nation, it just has to accept and face its multi-ethnicity. And I really hope that the most harsh challenge was in the past. So the biggest challenge we had was in the beginning of the 20th century, where we had pogroms, a lot of Jewish people were killed, and we had Holocaust. And so that's the biggest challenge we had. And I am so naive and optimistic to think it's not going to happen anymore, and we'll just accept and we'll just respect each other.
And in your bio, it says that you studied economics, but your real passion was photography. Can I ask, how hard is it for young people in Moldova to pursue their dreams these days?
I think these days it's not that hard, because once we have internet right now, right? And like lots of doors are open. And if you really, really want that, you can achieve that. In 90s, Moldova was quite complicated because it was quite how would say yeah, we had to survive because we passed from the Soviet Union economy to
capitalistic economy. Yeah,
capitalistic economy. And I think people who would understand economics a little bit even, or have an idea how to deal with it, just survived and existed in 90s better. So I lived in a family, and I have a family that my dad was an economist. The transition wasn't that hard. I really wanted to do history of arts or journalism. But what he said is that a good journalist in our country is a dead journalist because of, very corrupted situation that time. And if you want to be a painter or a teacher, professor, that means you're going to be poor. So I was quite influenced by the circumstances and by his example, because, well, this is how we survived in the 90s, and we had like a better life than all my friends or my colleagues. So that was, but my passion was just it took over me.
And I believe now Moldova is also applying for EU, European Union membership. So there are obviously benefits to that, but also becoming more of a certain society. Let's take a look at one of your photos. We're just going to choose a random one, I'm afraid, but if we can, if you can explain to us, where did you shoot this, for example, and what does this show?
So in order to understand my photos, I think you just have to know the style of how I'm working.
Yes.
I take it as all my photographic journeys are mostly about once I met a man, a quite a religious man, who would tell me that he talks to God through the people. So I said, what a great idea to have a dialogue with this world out there. You just go out and you are having the dialogue with the universe, and you meet people, and you meet diversities, and you meet different situations, difficult sometimes like that brings you joy. This one, for example, I was walking in a village, and there were lots of people working on the field, and they were collecting corn, and they have a small break in their house, and so a few women would just have a small snack, as you can see, on the table. So I just asked to take a picture of that table, and here it is.
The break, yes.
The last supper.
Yeah, I was going to ask, that is the Last Supper, right? Up there in it's like a painting, I guess. Yeah, very telling.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Natalia. for explaining to us about Moldova.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I'd now like to move on to Leanne. Leanne, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, we can hear you. Leanne is joining from South Africa today. She is the laureate in the professional category. In her series, The Right to Play, Leanne portrays girls attending Kakenya's Dream School, highlighting their resilience and empowerment in the face of challenges like poverty, low education rates, harmful medical practices, and child marriage in rural Kenya. Leanne uses collaborative storytelling to explore themes relating to gender and identity. Working as a freelance photographer since 2017, she was nominated World Press Photo Winner in 2020 and 2023 and has been published by the international media. Congratulations on your win, Leanne. And you have multiple awards, obviously, and we are now looking at some of the IWPA photos that you submitted and you won. I just want to take you one of the stories that you did with a World Press Award, which might be also related. It's the Stories That Matter series, The Stories That Matter Africa, The Big Forget. Now, your winning series in this one is also about Africa, Kakeya's Dream School students. First of all, can I ask, who are these girls? What school is this? And the big question, of course, I want to ask, has the world been ignoring Africa and young Africans too long?
Thank you for the lovely introduction. So in 2021, I was commissioned to direct a documentary about Kenya and Taya, who founded Kenya's Dream School. And so I traveled to Kenya to meet her, and she's just one of the most phenomenal women I've ever met. She's got an incredible personal story where when she was 5 years old, she was engaged already to be married at age 12. And this is quite common in many rural parts of Kenya and other communities in Africa where child marriage is still a big problem, is that when girls turn 12, they undergo female genital mutilation and they get married. And that's kind of your life. You grow up, you get married, and that's it. And Kenya had a very different dream for herself and her community. And she made a deal with her father where she negotiated to continue her schooling and to finish high school, which she did, which is remarkable. She was the first person in her community to achieve that. And then she said, well, I want to go and study. And her father said, well, this time you're not only going to negotiate with me, you've got to ask all the men in our village. And in her community, there's a belief that morning brings good news. And so every morning at sunrise, Kenya went to all the men in her community and asked permission to go and study. And she got it, but the agreement was that she had to do something for her community when she was done. So she went to the United States, she met a man, she fell in love, they eventually got married, and she kept her promise. She went back to her community in the Masai Mara, and she started the school called Kenya's Dream. And she's now working with her local community, with the Maasai community, to empower girls to not only finish their education, but also not to get married at such a young age. And this just blew me away. I was just absolutely in awe of this woman and her personal journey. And then I realized that so much of Kenya's story is still being told through the girls attending the school. And so I knew I wanted to do work around child marriage and FGM. And I think when you talk about difficult social issues, especially in a culture that you're not a part of, I think it's extremely important to look at the individuals within that community who are making changes and how they're doing that. And so I didn't want to show girls as being the victims of their circumstances, and especially girls and women from Africa, because that's something we've seen enough of. We don't need more images like that. We need to show women from the African continent in a way that is affirming, in a way that celebrates their identity. And So the idea for the series was born, and I pitched it to Kenya. I had a very vague idea of what I wanted to do, and she completely trusted me. And that for me was a phenomenal moment to see how I could share an idea and share this concept, and we developed it from there. And I think especially as a photographer living and working in Africa, for me, for women in the heroes of their own stories, and to really use the medium of photography as a mode of celebration. Collaboration is a very big theme in my work. I think when I started out as a photographer, I'm self-taught. I came from a very naive place where, I guess, like most people, I thought that you could tell somebody's story. And I very quickly learned that all you're doing is you tell a very small part of somebody's story through your lens. And that's where collaboration became key for me, where I realized that as a photographer or storyteller or journalist, you are actually the person in the room that knows the least about the story you're about to tell. And you have to listen, you have to engage with the people that you're working with, you have to collaborate, you have to have conversations around the images. And that forms a big part of my practice. And for me, that's the most amazing thing, is starting a project and knowing that your ideas are a foundation, but that you need to chuck them out the window kind of very quick into the project, because the people that you're working with know their story, they know how they want to be shown so much better than you. And I love that. I love holding space for people to direct their images, to be a part of the conversation. With the girls in particular, it was really fun to get them to look at the computer and choose their images. And it was remarkable to see there was one girl, Alicia's, there's an image of her standing on top of a chair. And she was 8 years old at the time that we made the picture. She had just had this incredible confidence. She just walked right in and stood on that chair and posed. And she said, "This is what I want for my picture." And that blew me away, that girls could have that level of confidence at such a young age. And that's what I saw within that community, is that the school was telling girls that you're valid, your dreams are valid, you're important. And that made such an impact on how they interacted with me and how they presented themselves to the world, compared to some of the other girls I met in the community that were not in school.
Mm. And this picture, actually, I had not noticed. I mean, all your photographs, I thought I saw them of the series, but this is. Can you tell us the reasoning behind this? Can you see it on our screen?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
So globally, around 129 million girls are out of school. And it was important for me to find a way to visualize this massive loss to society. And we decided to take some of the school uniforms and to suspend them in the classroom to speak about the staggering number, because it's such a frightening statistic. And to find a way to visually put an image, put an emotion to that number was very important for me.
Yes, very powerful. Lots to talk about, and I just don't want to leave it there, but thank you so much, like everybody else, Leanne, and again, once again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to someone who's been up since, I believe, 3 a.m. in the morning. Rayito, can you hear us?
Hello, yes.
Hi, Rayito Flores Pelcastre. She is a finalist in the professional category from Mexico with her work called Chirping of Crickets. Rayito's poignant work addresses filicide, drawing from her childhood memory of a classmate scarred by parental abuse. Using bioplastic, her series portrays victims of psychological and physical abuse sourced from files by the civil organization called LAE in Mexico, and shedding light on the grim reality of domestic violence. A photographer and architect, Rayito has showcased her work in prestigious exhibitions such as the Photography Biennale of Mexico and the New York Latin American Art Triennial in 2022. Her notable achievements also include an honorable mention at the Barco Biennial of Contemporary Art and commissions from the Supreme Court of Justice. Rayito, thank you for being with us. I know it's very early there in the morning, but I just want to ask you, when we think of domestic violence, which is a common theme perhaps in so many of the IWPA photo series, we always almost think about femicide. And I know that in Mexico, this is a, a serious problem as well elsewhere. But an equally harrowing fact is that domestic violence can also take the form of filicide, which is, of course, the killing of one's son or daughter. Can you tell us how widespread is this problem in Mexico, and where does the series name Chirping of Crickets come from?
Well, firstly, I would like to express my gratitude for this platform that allows for dialogue about the project. When we contemplate domestic violence, it is indeed associated with feminicide. However, in my experience with visual research, Filicide often remains obscured because discussing the topic of childhood violence, particularly when committed by a family member, is distressing and painful. Despite some research suggesting that filicide is a practice that has existed since the beginning of society in the story, violence within family environments is becoming increasingly frequent and normalized. For instance, in Mexico, there is a grim statistic. Every 2 days, a child dies at the hands of their caregivers. Particularly during the COVID pandemic, statistics become unclear as many children remain unregistered by the state, leaving them unprotected and vulnerable to disappearance, with their immediate family members unaware. Unfortunately, this phenomenon exists globally, and the most severe cases are frequently showcased in the media. There is no country untouched by filicide. Nevertheless, through this case, I've been monitoring the implementation of the new laws, such as the Lucio law in Argentina, the Piqui law in California, designed to protect children from abusive parents. And in the case of Mexico, the Ingrid law penalize the dissemination of image of victims, especially girls and women. And about the name, with my project, the Chirping of the Crickets, it originates from my initial research phase. Most victims are found in desolate location where the only present is pain, earth, and grass, and is the place that silence provides, broken only by the chirping of the crickets, serving as a metaphor for the frequent stories of pain.
Yes, now it makes absolute sense, of course, Chirping of Crickets, the name. I just want you to take us a little bit. I know I don't want you to perhaps retell the grim facts, but when we're looking at this picture, this photograph, for example, maybe not the name, but who was this child and what happened?
Well, the image, it's not, when you see the image, it's not only a case. It's, for example, when you see the chair, is because sometimes the violence is in silence and increment little by little. So when I read a case, for example, the chair is like a way of torture, and this is like information the I take it and then I try to express with my pictures. And for example, this girl is a case in Mexico, en el estado de Mexico. There is is one of the places with more violence or case with girls. and also with the relation about the feminicide is danger about this place and I just want to say about the girl 3 months stay in hospital because try the doctors to survive, but there's in the media or the research says I just want to die because my parents don't love me, so please let me die.
Thank you, Rayito, for sharing that with us. Thank you very much. And well, we've come to the end of the list of panelists. The last but not least is Lorraine. Lorraine Turci, is it right? Am I pronouncing it? Turci? Okay. Okay. Turci. Okay. Lorraine, you won IWPA special mention. Congratulations. So you asked the question, what does it mean to be Ainu today? And in your work, The Resilience of the Crow series, you're documenting contemporary Ainu life in Hokkaido, showcasing their vibrant culture and strong identity, highlighting the everyday aspects of their existence and exploring the universal quest for identity. Your work focuses on the complex relationships between humans and their environments. You have won several awards and been exhibited in France and around the world, including at the Norway Nordic Light Festival and the Festival de la Gacilly. Again, if I may ask you, like I asked perhaps to the very first panelist, Louise, how did you, who was interested in Kyrgyzstan, how did you first become interested in Ainu, and obviously a minority living in Hokkaido? And what does identity mean to your research?
Just before the COVID crisis, I spent 3 months in Hokkaido because I was following my partner who was working there. In there, I spent, I said, 3 months, and I learned about the Ainu people through the territory and through the history and culture there. So I learned about their existence at this time, and I decided to work on this subject since this time. So it took me several years to understand, to read, to make researches, and to be able to go back in Japan and be able to shoot this first attempt, because I realized recently that it's a lifetime work, so I need to be back there and to follow them for longer than what I did. Yeah.
And in how long did you stay there, did you say?
Almost 3 months.
3 months, okay.
It's not so long because it was quite difficult to get in to be in touch with people, because most of them at first didn't want to even to meet me because they was very shy about their identities, because they are such sorry for my English.
No,
they're struggling with discrimination, even if they don't say so. It's inner discrimination that they know they will have into the see that the other people will have on them, so they avoid to say they are Ainu, most of them. So it took me these times to make boundaries, and now that's why I want to go back, because I know now that I made this boundary, as as Sara and Leanne and all of them speak brilliantly. It's about what you make contact with the people outside of pictures, and it's about to taking these pictures. It's about the relation and the confidence that the people have with you and you have with the people. So
and we can see some very, very, very powerful But also, I think there's a photo of a snow-capped. Obviously, this is Hokkaido country. Have you felt? I know that it's only 3 months that you spent there, but maybe based on your research, the climate change. By the way, we are having such a warm evening here in Japan and warm day. We don't know what's going on. It's like 25 degrees Celsius with winds. So during your time in Hokkaido among the Ainu people, have you seen any visible effects of climate change, or have they expressed to you that they were genuinely affected by this more than maybe others like us living in the cities?
To be honest, I don't know yet, because at first I was concentrated about learning and speaking about the Ainu culture and struggling about as a society and social aspects. About the territory, it was more a discover for me and for the work. So I tried to place the Ainu into this territory, Hokkaido, that is very specific, but as forever territory. Now, speaking about the future and about the climate changing, I definitely think that there is effects, but I didn't speak with them about this because the language is not so easy, because I don't speak Japanese. The people there, as it's countryside, people don't speak English at all. So it was a struggling event to speak about the rights, the history of the culture and how they are doing it today. So it will be the subject definitely about a next work on there, because definitely it makes change. Yeah. But for say something, is Ainu as they have something in common with the Inuit people, is that they are adapting to a lot of things, and they said that they will adapt. So it's quite difficult, because they are the first one to be subject of this, but in the same time they are saying this. So it's quite sorry for
No
I try
worries.
to write things, but I can't read and speak and think in the same time. So
no worries. Maybe next time when you're here, please tell us, and we would love to have you here, and you can explain here in person. Sure. But I just want to ask if, thank you so much, Lorraine. If anyone has any final comments online, if I may ask first, or final remarks if they want to share, or here in the audience, if there's anybody who wants to ask a question, or if they want to make a comment, please, now is the time. So anyone online or in the audience? Yes, Joan, please. You actually, if you want, you can use that.
I just wanted to say thank you for this incredible event, and to all the photographers. My name's Joan Anderson. I'm an associate member, and it was just incredibly powerful and moving to see this series of works, and the sensitivity and I just think this extraordinary level of thoughtfulness and compassion behind all the photographers' work. And I was particularly struck by I'm sorry, I forgot her name, the South African photographer, saying, we can't tell other people's stories, which I think is a very
Leanne.
Great reminder to all of us. But yes, I'd be fascinated to hear comments from any of the photographers about whether they think, how does being a woman influence their work? Because that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a selection of very talented photographers who happen to be women. So just in case anyone has a comment, thank you so much.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
But being
Lorraine?
a woman photographer, it's a large question. And I'm not quite sure it's about the sensitivity. I think that as human, we have one. The thing is that we struggle maybe with more things. And because we struggle with things, we have solidarities with the other people that struggle with things. I think that is why it's about the sensitivities. It's not by native things that we have because we are women, but just because we are struggling against things. So it makes that common with the others. Yeah, I think.
Thank you for your comments.
I would also like to add something. So I think as a female photographer, I have a lot of advantages sometimes because I feel that the people I work with are more open to me sometimes, or they feel more, they have the freedom to open to me and to maybe also be sad or to be any kind of emotion. So sometimes it can be an advantage, but also I feel like that the coverage at the end, so when I already conducted the series and I worked on a project, that this is then the difficult part to spread the information in the series. And sometimes there I see then a difficulty then by male photographers where, that's just my personal opinion, that I feel like there's like more coverage, and from a percentage point of view, like I can see much more male photographers in galleries, in festivals. So I'm very happy that there's a movement and development to shed light also on female photographers and the topics they work on.
Thank you very much. Your work is being exhibited here until December the 2nd. All the laureates and finalists of International Women in Photo Awards 2023. Louise Amelie, Sara Bennett, Natalia Garbu, Leanne Olwage, Rayito, Flores, Pelcastre, and Lorraine Turci. Thank you so much for joining us online tonight. Thank you, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.